All right, guys, so imagine this. You're a new dad. Your son is 18 months old. You're exhausted from sleep deprivation. Your marriage is stretched thin. And behind the scenes, you're carrying one of the heaviest secrets. And that is you have a porn addiction. And maybe that's you. It really wreaks havoc on our life. It really wreaks havoc on our intimacy, our connection. And it's one of those things, it's like a slow burn. It's like the frog that gets into the pot of water and it's like this slow boil and you don't know how bad it is until the water starts boiling, like, oh crap, this is a problem. We're talking about that uncomfortable topic again. That's okay, because I don't think we can, quite frankly, we can't talk about it enough. So today's podcast, man, it's not just a conversation around porn. It's a conversation around becoming the man that your family needs. Chandler, what's going on, man? How are you?
What's up, Larry? Good to be here.
It's good to have you. We had an idea before we hit record that we should just like stream live porn while we record this show and just maybe like judge it and that kind of thing. But then we were like, maybe that's not the best idea.
Yeah, it also might not work very well over the audio platforms.
Oh man,
don't want to go there. We're not going to go there.
No, man. So, well, first of all, let's start out with your family, dude. You have an 18-month-old. This is your first, right?
Yes. I'm a new dad dealing with toddler life for the first time.
Yeah, and it's a boy or girl?
He's a boy.
Boy. And what'd you name him?
His name is Psalm.
Psalm,
like the Old Testament book.
Really?
Yes.
So, tell me the story behind that name.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's technically a biblical name, but everyone's like, oh, wow, I've never heard that before. And really, my wife just sent me a text one time. I think she was sitting in church, and I don't know if it was like from the book of Psalms, but she like looked up the meaning, and it means like a song to God or a praise to God. And she sent that, and it was not on our name list. You know, she of course had a list with a bunch of names, and it just felt right, felt fitting for him. So,
Dude, that is cool. What's his middle name?
Chandler. So
Psalm Chandler. That is cool. I have never heard that name, but that I'm sure you probably get that a lot.
Yeah.
But that's
scary,
cool.
man. Like naming a kid, I remember sitting in the hospital. I was paralyzed for like 3 days and starting a company. So like even choosing the name of my company, I felt the same way, dude. I'm like, I hate making a choice on the name because it's so definitive. But
Yeah.
I think it slowly become like, I can't even see it any other way. Like it just it makes sense, right? It fits him.
That's cool, man. Well, since you talked about it, let's hold off on the name of your company because I want to talk about just your experience being in dad life for 18 months. What has been something that has pleasantly surprised you about dadhood, and something that you're like, I did not think this, whatever this is, would be this difficult?
Yeah, man, I feel like my bias is always towards what's happening most recently, and
Of
like,
course.
of
Yeah.
course, it's changing like every single week. I was just out of town for 5 days in Nashville for a work conference. I come back and he learned how to say the word no, and he's just saying it for fun. So I come home and he's just like, no, no, no. I'm like, no, what? He's just saying no for fun. Like, I think what I'm pleasantly surprised about is just seeing how much personality can fit into such a little human being.
Oh my
And like
gosh.
more early that I noticed that. Like I felt like I could see just a glimpse of who he was, unique to him from just the earliest, days and weeks. And it feels like it only gets, more as he keeps getting older. So that's been pleasantly surprising. And man, on the other end of the spectrum, I know people talked about sleep being like a brutal, aspect of, hey, hang in there and it'll get better. I'm still waiting for it to get better. I feel like we've tried to like do all the sleep training and like get it right. And then we take a trip and it's all messed up, or we moved the other week and it's all messed up. Our AC is currently broken, so his room's really hot. And so I'm like, I just currently am accepting this, like, I guess the sleep was even worse than I was told and advertised.
Oh, man, it is hard, man. It's funny. I've been a dad for 20 years now. It's kind of crazy to think of that. And people, it's funny. People they'll be so happy for you, right? When you're in the heat of it, right? Like, oh, it must be so wonderful. And like, especially like the way I always tell guys who haven't had kids yet, they're like, man, what's the first 3 months like? I was like, it sucks. I was like, but don't get me wrong. I was like, I'm not trying to sound like a complete and total pessimist. I was like, there are moments that are absolute awe It's just like this is the coolest thing ever. And especially like after like that 3 month mark, it's like the 4 month they start interacting, they recognize you, they get smile and that kind of thing. But like I'm just very honest with guys. I'm like, dude, the first 3 months are absolutely brutal. I was like, you're in the 18 month and it's still, sleep can get like really, really squirrely. I was like, but man, it is not easy. You take sleep away from somebody and your best friend is going to look like your worst enemy. It's hard, man.
It's tough. Yeah, I feel like you take it for granted how foundational it is to just have a body that functions with sleep and water, and nutrition and exercise, and throw all of those things out the window. Maybe we'll get into this later, but yeah, physical health impacts a ton.
It really does. It really does. But so question for you as we kind of keep going with this thing. So has this experience of the first 18 months, you're like, this one might be our one and only, or are you like very eager to have another one?
Oh man, no, we'll have more. We don't know how many. It's definitely put a question mark on. So is it like the lower end of the range or the higher end of the range?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I think if anything, it's like he's getting older and we're like, ideally it feels like it would be nice to have a 2 year age gap or whatever the age gap would be, but that's like, okay, so now is when we need to get pregnant. Like that does not feel
Right.
like it feels like just yesterday that we're figuring things out. And so I don't know, but we'll see. We'll see when the right time comes.
No, I hear you, man. Have you tried, just real quick, have you tried the swaddle thing?
What swaddle thing?
Okay. I might save your hide here, but he might also be way too old for this
Oh,
one. So
I was gonna say when they were little, like yeah, wrapping them up and
yeah.
straight jacketing them with a swaddle. But that did work for a month. It worked for the first month I felt like was okay.
Okay. So yeah, like our all four of our boys, they loved the swaddle thing. And then as they got kind of older, they still loved the swaddle. It was crazy. But we would have like the one arm that would hang out in the swaddle, and they liked that. But here's what we found. We found sleep sacks. You know what those are?
Yes, yes.
Does he like those?
Not currently with the 90-degree
Yeah,
hook,
not right.
but yes, I feel like sleep sacks actually were really helpful for a while. Think what did throw it off was honestly just traveling. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, maybe we should try those again.
I don't know all four of our boys were like obsessed with those things. It was like you put the sleep sack on the kids and it was almost like giving them like NyQuil. Like they would just be like, I'm suddenly tired.
Just
But it
imagine.
but my wife was like my wife is a very compassionate person and loving and all that. But dude, she was a dictator when it came to sleep with these kids. She's like, they will not sleep in our bed. No, never. Unless it's an emergency, they have a bad dream, they can come in, but no, never. They will never sleep in our bed. So that was a boundary that was not crossed. She's like, if they cry, she's like, I know their cries. If they really, really need me, I'll go in there. Otherwise, they'll go back to sleep. And I'm not talking about when they're little and they actually need to be fed, but like to the point where like they weigh enough now, they're crying because, and my wife was like, I'm like, should we go in and get them? She's like, no, give it 15 more minutes. Like,
Wow, she was the boundary holder. Let's
or
go.
she was, man, she was like, no, we're not doing this. And I'm like, okay. And dude, it worked out for all four of our boys. They were pretty good sleepers, or at least they were trained to be. So,
That's
but I
good.
hear you, man. That's tough. Well, what's tell me about marriage. How long you guys been married?
Yeah, we've been married 5.5 years now. So yeah, we met at college. My wife's name is Jade. Yeah, I may have mentioned she also moved around a lot growing up. So both of us, when we first met, it was like, where are you from? I don't know. I've only lived somewhere 3 years max because her family was Air Force and my dad just changed jobs all the time. So we bonded over that, but since we've been married, we've lived here in Utah where we're at right now. So I maybe can almost say that we're from Utah at this point.
Well, dude, you guys are like the family of cool names. So Chandler, Jade, and Psalm. Are you kidding me?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
that's like you see that on paper, you're like this family's savage. Like,
Trying to live up to the names, man. That's why I'm here. No.
yeah, that's awesome. Well, like, let's stick with this with marriage for a minute here because how has having Psalm impacted you guys' marriage? And I would say for the good, and then maybe what are some of the challenges that have arisen?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I felt like I knew the just the experience of pregnancy, birth, and postpartum would be a lot for Jade. And I came into it with the mindset of like, we're fully equally yoked. I'm here to like support, not just emotionally, but in any way that I can. So I even remember right after having Solomon, taking him home, her journey trying to figure out breastfeeding with him was a little difficult at first. He was really small when he was born. He was 3 weeks early. So those early days were, we were both totally focused on him and trying to figure out how to feed him. Cause yeah, they were scaring us. It's like, you gotta make sure he's getting weight at this, particular rate. And, but I felt like both of us were just so all hands on deck on trying to help keep this new human alive that I think both of us, it did take a toll and has taken a toll. I think we're still kind of coming out a little bit more with our head above water, but, um, I think what that looked like is, all of a sudden there was a lot less time to just talk, to connect, to, have intimacy emotionally with each other because, and I noticed this in her, I felt like whenever I was going to her looking for maybe some of my, my own emotional needs to be met, like I'm feeling like I just want to be seen and be loved. She was spent, totally like spent, didn't have physical energy, was spent emotionally. And I think that's been a hard like adaptation, just to be totally real, like trying to figure out it's pushed me to think about like I need to find ways to not rely on, her to get those needs met. I think it highlighted some areas where, I thought we had been developing, more of a system that works for us where, she's healthy and I'm healthy and we can be healthy together. But as two broken, imperfect people, of course, like there's areas of unhealthiness. And it's really highlighted, I think, those areas where, shoot, like I'm probably not as healthy personally, just in and of myself as I need to be. And that's impacting my ability to experience the level of connection now in our marriage now with this other variable that is tough.
So yeah, I think that's pretty common in marriages, and it's what you just said is like the unspoken thing. No one talks about that. Especially dudes. Like, I just did at the end of July, I did a podcast on men and mental health and how many men experience, disconnection from their wives, disconnection just from other men, um, meaning good men, like who share like aligned vision. I'm not talking about like you see like, somebody at work and that kind of thing. But the impact of that, and then the percentage of men, and I can't remember off the top of my head, the percentage of men that don't get help for it, but also the percentage of men that don't that don't even talk about it like at all. Like this is kind of like why we have these really surface level conversations of like, hey man, like how's Jade? Oh, we're good.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
Like how's Sam? Oh,
No,
he's great, man.
he's
Like
cute. He's learning to say the word no. And then, yeah.
exactly what you just said, man. We don't talk about, right? And it's really really hard for us. So I got to commend you. I mean, obviously you're on the podcast, so we're going to talk about deep stuff anyway. But there's so many men that experience that. And I'm going to throw this out there because I don't remember the statistic off the top of my head, but it's over 60% of men don't even talk about it, right? So it's over half the guys that experience it don't even say it out loud to anybody else.
Yeah.
But
But I think what's really tricky, if I can just add one thing to that, is you're seeing your partner, your spouse, right, go through so much and objectively sacrificing, so much of her, to bring this child into the world. And, maybe the message that society sends us men is, women have it hard. I don't want to argue with that. I don't want to disagree because there's so much truth to that. Like I want to respect and hold space for the courage that my wife has to do everything it takes to be a mother, and to bring this child into the world and to keep him alive, in the last 18 months since he was born. But at the same time, I'm realizing, man, I feel like the demands on me just, exponentially were added upon my plate. And I feel like, how do I talk about that in a way that doesn't take away from all of the hard work and sacrifice of my wife? Because I think both are true, right? That I'll speak just for me as a father, as a husband. Man, I feel like the math doesn't add up. Sometimes I'm not sure how I can do it all, but I also don't want to take away from the fact that my wife is feeling the same way. And so for us, like we're having to be really careful to not turn that into a little bit of a spiral of resentment where I'm like, she's not seeing how much I'm pulling around the house and how much I'm pulling at work. And when I get home, like being always on to try to let her get some extra sleep in the morning when she's had a rough night. And that maybe bumps my workday back, or staying up till midnight to like help take care of the house because she is in with him. And vice versa, she's maybe feeling a little resentment, like, well, he gets to go to work at all. I wish I could do that. And right now, and that isn't a reality for her currently. And so just that, like figuring out how to not let those realities turn into resentments and to honor each other as we're taking on these new roles has been a learning curve.
And that's you said the R word there, which is resentment. That's the in our community in the Dad Edge Alliance, that's our membership community. That's our mastermind. And I'll tell you, we refer to that R word as the same as the C word in healthcare, which is the cancer, right? Resentment starts to seed in, and it's almost like the polyp, right? That you don't go and get your routine colonoscopy. It's not to really paint a nasty picture, but it is what it is. It's like colon cancer. If you read Peter Attia's book, How Not to Die, it's one of the most popular books out there. One of the chapters is dedicated just for that. He's like, it's the one cancer that can be prevented, and it's the one procedure that is both diagnostic and surgical at the same time. So they can literally just completely prevent it right then and there. But he says, not all polyps become cancer, but all cancers start with a polyp. And it's the same thing with resentment. Once that starts to seed into a relationship, each individual starts telling themselves a story about the other, and then that resentment starts to fester. That's when things get really, really bad if not addressed, right? And you said it just really, really beautifully is like, this other person is going through this type of experience, and I need to maybe look at the lens through what they're going through, but also communicate the lens that I'm going through as well. And I love that you said that and addressed that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get to your story. So obviously, going back to the question I was talking about earlier, was you picked an incredible name for your son, and then obviously that was a lot of pressure. It took you 3 days to do that. Relay, though, tell me about how you came up with that name. So when I did some research on you, and I was like, that's a really interesting. Like it really hit me too. Is I was like, that's a really interesting name for something that you do. So what is the meaning behind that?
Yeah. Yeah. So the name behind relay comes from just the idea of a relay race where, I ran the 4x800 and 4x400 in track. And in a relay race, you have to run your individual leg. Like there is a deeply individual effort when it comes to competing in a relay event. But you also literally cannot compete on your own. You have to compete with a team. And so it's just this idea of like, we're running our individual race, but we need to do it together. It's kind of the symbol for connection and community that just felt really appropriate for what relay does. I don't know if we want to get into that, but
Let's do it.
yeah. So relay deals with, helping individuals dealing with pornography and sexual addiction. It was something that I dealt with for a long time, and I dealt with it alone, right? I was doing that alone in isolation, which created so much shame. And everything changed for me when I, found the right community, the right group, which is like the last thing, right? That most guys feel like, I want to go and talk with other men about. Um, but having an environment with Relay is a platform that we started about 5 years ago that makes it easier, lowers the barriers to get put into a group of 7 or 8 other guys. It's all through an app on your phone or through your computer. So you can stay, semi-anonymous and protect your privacy while also stepping into really being seen and known to help heal those wounded parts that we, may have turned to acting out with pornography or anything else. And so our mission with Relay, a lot of guys will ask me, so like, okay, so you help guys quit porn. I say, well, that's just the first part. Really, I think what I care about is helping guys step into connection and healing the parts of them that need to be seen, having real intimacy.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, the isolation part, I think, is a real thing. One of my very first mentors, the mastermind that I joined 10 years ago, the very first one I ever joined, he said this quote, and I still use it to this day all the time, and it's isolation is the enemy of excellence.
Mm.
And it's so true. But like one of the things I really want to talk to you about is why you think porn is not the real issue.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for so many guys, the problem usually starts and the exposure happens when we're young. So
Right.
is when I was 14, that's like on the later end from what the research largely shows. It's more around 11 And anecdotally, I see a ton of guys in our community that talk about as early as 8 years old, where they were exposed in some way to pornography. Um, and so we could get into a lot of the different, reasons that pornography becomes an issue later on. But the common thread is, as human beings, our brain doesn't want to feel discomfort or pain for too long. Like the limbic system part of our brain, and I'm not the neuroscience expert, but this is what I learned when I first realized that I needed help. I realized that I had this limbic system part of my brain that was really good at discerning pleasure and seeking out comfort and pleasurable things, and that's an important part of my survival. And then it also is in charge of helping me identify pain, and it wants to get out of pain and soothe it with pleasure. And so often as we're growing up, in the early formative years, let's call it those teenage, early years, we want to be accepted by our peer groups. We want to feel secure in our relationship with our caregiver, with our parents. And as being in broken communities, broken families, like none of us, no matter how good you think your childhood was, none of us came from a perfect family that was able to meet your unique needs perfectly, like your emotional needs. And so what happens? Like we go through life, and maybe start to feel like I'm not as appreciated as I want to feel, or like my dad doesn't fully get me, or whatever the story is. These can be larger experiences, or they can be like a lot of little subtle things. But when we're exposed to something as they call it a hypernormal stimulus, like pornography, that activates so much dopamine in the brain, you pair that with going through these experiences where I'm feeling lonely. I'm feeling maybe not as accepted as I want to feel in my school friend groups, or there's a divorce happening at home, or abuse, or any number of combination of pain that can happen in this life and stressors. Our brains learn that, hey, this feels better. This makes me feel comfort. This takes that edge away. It's the opposite of the dad edge. It's the soothing edge that promises us comfort. And then I think that why it's not really the real issue is because it's masking the fact that there's these underlying wounds often that are bleeding that need to be addressed. And pornography is like a Band-Aid. It may work for a minute, but where does it leave us, right? Where does it send us over the years to come? And that's why I think porn isn't really the issue, and why I don't really like to talk about it like an addiction or like it is the problem, because I think it's more of a symptom, like of deeper issues in our life.
I've heard this from other podcast guests who have talked about porn, and the same thing. It's, porn is necessarily the problem. It's more of a discomfort issue. What do I do with like this charge, this pain, that I feel? And do you think that well, you know what? I'm not going to ask you a yes or no question. I'm going to rephrase this. How do you think we justify this as it's okay? Because, dude, by the way, everybody in the audience knows that for years, this was my vice. In my younger years, I was exposed to it at 9 from a relative, and it was really weird. Like he thought it was a joke, and he put in a VHS tape, and we were gonna watch a movie, and he pops in this VHS tape, and I'm like, I was 9. I was literally the same age as my youngest son, and I was like, what? Like, I was like, what am I watching here? Like, what is happening? Like, I was just like blown away. But like, I was also, no pun intended, but I was also like, there was a part of me, like, I was grossed out because I was 9. Like, you don't even know what the hell you're watching, right? But then that seed that like was planted in my mind created tremendous curiosity of what did I see? What was that all about? Like, that's kind of like fascinating, right? And then food was a big vice for me growing up, like as a kid. But then when I got into fitness at 17, that sort of went away. But I never really got too deep into alcohol. I don't even drink anymore. Drugs was never my thing. Porn was my thing. Like discomfort, porn. Here's like, I want to know from you, how do you think guys justify this? Because I know, like, dude, I had like 3 or 4 like total BS reasons now that I look at them that made total sense to me. And I know now that they were just complete and total BS, but I didn't know that at the time. But how have you seen guys justify this?
Yeah, I'd really split it into two camps. There's guys who feel like, call it more explicit rationalizations, like they actually they're telling themselves some narrative that this isn't a problem or this is fine. And maybe the rationalization is there, like, well, it's not hurting anyone else, right?
Yeah.
It's not actually related to my relationship with my girlfriend or my wife or whatever. Okay. Maybe it's also like it's normal. Everyone's doing it, right? It's literally, and I was exposed as like Instagram and Facebook were exploding, and like there's just not even hardcore pornography, but just sexualized content is just becoming more and more the norm. And so we're almost programmed as men that that's like, lust is just, in our DNA, which is so convoluted with the truth, which I think is that sexuality is in our DNA, and it's supposed to be beautiful, and it's supposed to be a lot more than just sex, right? It's supposed to be about real connection. I think there's a lot of lies that are explicit rationalizations there, but I think the more insidious, subtle lies are from a lot of guys that I would describe as like when they're in their rational, sane mind, they actually are not trying to tell themselves any lies. They're saying, no, I know it's bad. Or that it's not serving me, I should say, and the way that they say it may look different. But it's interesting because then they're still acting out. They're still turning to it on a very regular basis. And for many of them, it's like the more they focus on it, the more they believe that it is a problem. It's like the worse it gets. It's kind of like a weed that like spreads the more you focus on it. In the really tough thing, like where it gets really sad is like, I think it creates a shame spiral there for those guys. That's like, and maybe it's like because I'm Christian and that's what I was taught growing up is that this is, a sin. Or maybe it's just because I am married and I know that this hurts my wife because she's found out before and I know that it is like having an impact on her. And so I want to stop. But then I guess I interpret your question, Larry, is like, well, then why does some part of us keep turning back? What rationalizations keep happening under the surface that bring us back? And I think it's really because parts of us start to dissociate and detach. Like the parts of us that are wounded, that continue to experience that cycle of pain and shame and numbing. Numbing is maybe a good word because I think those parts, they go offline so that they don't have to rationalize it, if that makes sense. It becomes more automatic where I'm not trying to lie to myself, but the part of me that feels like it needs it to survive has detached enough that it's okay. And so there's these fragmented parts that it's not in alignment with my value system, with what I really want. And I think that dissonance, that disconnect, those parts that are so at odds with each other live within so many good men that want to be good fathers and husbands and leaders. And that I think is what creates way more shame, which makes it all worse.
Yeah, it is. It's that shame cycle. I had somebody else actually describe the exact same thing to me, which is the shame cycle is, I have intuitional intelligence, even if on the conscious level, I'm like, man, this is not right, right? This is not right. I shouldn't be doing it. Like if we're saying that on a conscious level, that's one thing. But I think it does this rumble on our intuitional. And I think for a lot of faith-based guys, it's that thing, it's a spiritual thing, right? It's that intuition. It's like, come on, man, like, is this really right? Right? It's like a little nudge. But then you're right, after the fact, the very pain and shame that what you're talking about, the discomfort that we feel. Well, now we want to go do it again because we feel discomfort and shame. And then we go do it again. And then we feel the discomfort and the shame. And then we go do it again. And it's just like, you kind of get up to a point, I think, at least I did when I was going through this of like, this is really pointless for me to resist. I'm a guy. Like I have needs. Like I actually.
In the resentment too, in
Yeah.
marriage, right? I'm a guy, I have needs. My wife is unavailable because
Right.
she's, you know, tired from taking care of our kid.
Yeah.
Those things are true. Yeah.
Those things are true. Like I actually have said this on other podcasts, but like one of my 3 or 4 justifications for it was like, well, I don't want to bother her with it. So isn't this more selfless? Like, like I actually convinced myself of that at one point. Like this is very selfless of me to do this because I don't want to bother her with my needs. Which you're right. That in actuality, like I would look at her and be like, man, like she's not fulfilling my needs. When what's really crazy though, man, I don't know if this has been your experience with Jade, and I'm sure this has been. I went to your website. You've helped over 5,000 guys with this, right? Which is remarkable to me. But I would think, at least in my experience, personally, I'm saying personally, and I'd also say experience of other guys like in our group, right? There's resentment there that I honestly think, quite frankly, doesn't need to be there because usually I haven't, the problem is I actually haven't communicated those needs because I automatically assume that Jessica, maybe you did with Jade, she doesn't want to hear that from me, or I don't want to actually be authentic and vulnerable and tell her what I need. I actually don't want to burden her with this. What if she tells me no? And then there's that fear of rejection. When in actuality, this was years ago when I went and had the conversation with Jessica, and I'm like, and just stood in my masculine power and said, this is what I want. This is what I need. I even was very clear with like, I would love to have sex with you every 3 days at minimum. And you know what she said back to me? She's like, that sounds great. And I'm like, I looked at her like she had two heads, and I'm like, what? Like I had no idea because I was telling myself there's no way she would want it that much. Right. But it also comes from a place, I think, of confidence. Like I'm going to own that this is a need, whether she fulfills it or not. I'm not going to hold it against her, but I'm going to at least own the fact that I'm going to tell her. But have you noticed that when men are, I would say, more upfront, not coming from a place of needy and desperate energy of like, will you please have sex with me? Not that. More like I'm stating what I want out loud and with all confidence. And I'm also not going to hold it against you. And I don't control you if this is not a need you're willing to fulfill. But at least I can walk away from this conversation knowing that you know that this is important to me. What have you found in that experience? I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's spot on. I think so many of the times, like the story we tell ourselves is like, it, I'm gonna be left feeling rejected, alone. Like, and maybe it's probably not a subconscious narrative that's happening in my head. It's like literally just last night, I had something happen at work. Like, I had a tougher day. I went home. There's a lot of things going on. We're having family come into town this weekend, and I just didn't want to communicate. Like I wasn't necessarily feeling a sexual need. I was feeling an emotional gap of like
Connection.
connection
Yeah.
and like, man, whatever was going on inside of me. I didn't even want to like bring that to her because it just
Right.
felt like too much work, and that the outcome, the probability of feeling better on the other side felt too far away or felt too unlikely. And so that, yeah, it kept me in paralysis. Finally, near the end of the night, I was like, okay, I need to tell you, like, I've just had some things on my mind all day that have like been tough for me. And she was like surprisingly, like, when I said that too, when I prefaced that with, hey, I just have some things that I feel like I want to communicate and tell you, like things that have been on my mind, on my heart, that I'm just like struggling with right now. She like, her posture was able to, like, she got so much more present. And man, I felt like that was like a really helpful. But I almost went that whole night last night. Like, I was actually like so close to going to bed, just not saying anything about what was bothering me. Right. And I think that what I've noticed, Larry, is that it's not just like my ability to communicate when I feel like I have like sexual needs, but considering my own needs and how aware I am of my needs holistically. So all of my needs, can I be aware and communicate those, even if it's not like I'm asking Jade to help me meet, I don't know, like I, I also am like notoriously bad at preparing my own like breakfast and lunch. I don't necessarily expect my wife to, but I've gotten into this bad habit of just like, I'll skip meals like if food's not readily available, in my own justified rush because I'm like running from here to there and to get things done. So I may have this physical need of like, I haven't eaten all day, right? And it's the end of the day. I'm not necessarily expecting Jade to meet that need. But if I were to just be aware enough of that and to communicate that out loud, because intimacy requires us to communicate our needs, then it allows her to at least see me and potentially help me meet my own need, or help me meet my need from her. So anyways, I think the communication piece, and just it starts with awareness too. Are we even aware of what's going on?
So let's explore last night just a little bit more, if that's cool with you.
Please.
Was there any point in the night before you said anything to her that she was like, are you okay? Is something wrong?
Yes.
Okay. So that the reason I asked that is because if she was asking that, she was sensing it, right? She saw it, right? I just had another podcast guest on. GS Youngblood. I don't know if you know who he is, but he is just in the masculine energy and relationship space. He is a boss, man. He's a guru. But he talks about how a woman's intuitional intelligence around connection is off the charts higher than a man. Like they can sense those things from pretty far away, knowing like something's not right with you, Chandler. I can feel it. I can sense it. I see it in you, right? So it doesn't surprise me in the least when you basically like it was like the entrance door into like Walmart. Like as soon as you like opened it up and like, hey, there's some things that I want to tell you or I need to connect with you on, she postured right up, just like you said, right? She was ready for it, almost like she wanted you to do it. Like, hey, let me in on what's going on. You think there's some accuracy to that?
Oh, totally. And then the opposite has been true probably in the last 7 days. I'm thinking of some other examples where I didn't lead with like I didn't open those doors and say, give her the chance to like to notice and to take that posture of like, yeah, let me receive that and let me hear.
Right.
I do want to hear how are you feeling. Like there was these other times where I feel like my doors were still shut, but the things, whatever's bothering me, whatever needs, I wasn't attuning to, they were bursting out probably in less than ideal ways. You
100%.
know, it, and for me, right, it felt subtle, but she also picks up on those things of like, why are you kind of being like that, and like that creates more disconnects from each other, like that moves us away from intimacy, and that, then that makes me feel worse. Like I just want her to see, whatever's
Yeah.
I'm dealing with it doesn't have anything to do with her, right? But because I failed to like open that door enough to like let her in, it created this rift that right creates more of that stressor, that shame. It makes me want to move further away from her, which is not what I really need, right?
Right. No, I totally get it. You cool? I want to keep going with this. Couple more personal questions if you're willing to answer them. And if not, we can always edit out anything if it's too personal. But dude, you're speaking the everyday life of every man out there listening to this. So you cool with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, um, when you gave her a heads up, hey, I need to share some things with you that are on my mind. I need to share some things on you that I'm struggling with. You said she postured right up, right? Once you started sharing that, did you feel tremendous connection on both ends?
Felt like she was there with me
Yeah.
in the pain or in the discomfort that I was feeling. Like it wasn't anything she said. Yeah, it's like it was almost like a stance, a body language of like her. She did feel like she moved closer to me, and I don't.
Yeah.
That was actually literally true, but
Was
yeah.
it was it an intimate, obviously sex is different than intimacy, but did it feel like an intimate moment? I think all married couples can be like, this feels like a lot of closeness and connection. It feels intimate to me. Did you feel that?
Yeah, yeah. I specifically felt like she got softer, like
Yes.
more gentle. And I think one of her coping mechanisms that she's self-identified as like she's like I get more like her kind of more masculine energy, if you will, of like she's putting on the hard, face to run the house, and it what it looks like to me is like she's not present, like she's kind of isolating in her own way, and I just want to be met with that tender gentleness, like the little boy within me wants to just be scooped up and loved still, and I noticed that with Salt. I see that with him, that little boy that he just wants me to see him so
Mm.
deeply, to just be right there in a soft, gentle way. It's like, yeah, I felt that almost kind of melt with her last night where it felt like, again, I don't think it was anything she said. It was just like, it was just softer. And it's like that disarmed me and helped me feel like so close, right? Yeah, it was a very nice moment.
I would venture to say that you led her and influenced her into her feminine energy,
Mm,
right? Which is exactly where a woman wants to be,
yeah.
right? And you mentioned in there, that's why I pointed, I was like, then there it is. A woman who's taking care of a child, and is task oriented is in her masculine, right? They
Yep.
don't necessarily like to be in that. They're in that, but they don't like to be in that. As soon as we can lead and inspire and influence into their feminine. And by the way, I wanted to ask you the way you said it to me, like, because did you say it that way to her? Like, hey, I need to connect with you on a few things. I need to share a few things with you. Did you say it like that?
Yeah, I think the way I told it to her was like, hey, I didn't want to share this with you, and I don't really know if I want to talk about it a lot right now. But something happened at work earlier that's honestly making me feel like I've been kind of off the whole day. And then I just started kind of telling her more. Like I actually did talk about it, and then we actually did have a good conversation. But yeah, I kind of told her like, hey, there's something that I actually don't want to talk to you about, but I should probably tell you how I'm feeling. And
So
yeah,
right there,
right there.
calm, responsive, confident, clear in your masculine. Like you were very self aware with, like, I'm not comfortable having this conversation. but I need to bring you into this, right? And it was like you shared where you were at and how you felt, and in my opinion, if you shared it like that, you didn't share it from like this desperate, needy, like baby boy place. You shared it from a masculine place.
Yeah,
Correct.
totally.
Yeah.
And it connects back to like how porn fits into this. Like this would be my cycle. Like in
Right.
so I like I've still struggled in our marriage in the last 5 years to some extent, and in our marriage specifically, I've noticed that the opposite of this in moments like this where there was maybe some sort of need that I could bring her into and lead her into. If I did not make the choice or maybe lacked the skill set or in the moment just didn't do that, what I felt, what I perceived in that moment was these micro doses of rejection.
Right.
She's not manifesting that like gentle feminine energy that I kind of need to soothe whatever like again, it's not like hoping for sex or like this is also the misnomer. I think people think that guys turn to porn when they have a sexual need. That's not always true. I don't think that was my story, my cycle. It was usually felt like these opportunities where I didn't create that opportunity to lead her in to connect with my heart. And so how do I go to bed feeling right? I go to bed feeling like distant, more rejected, not seen, not loved, and maybe holding that R word, that resentment a little bit, just wishing that she was more capable at figuring out what's going on with me and feeling like, well, I communicated enough, but I still didn't feel like I got what I need from her. And that's
Yeah.
her fault, right? Or, making these justifications that would sometimes maybe lead back towards what does feel good, what is easy, what feels like comfort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You, I,
It's
I know we spent a lot of time there, but I wanted you to hit that hard, right? Because that is the silver lining, in my opinion, is, it's not because I'm with you, man. Like when I was in my porn days, right? Like I would just be like, I had a bad day at work. Psh, I'll go do that, right? When all the while, Jade and Jessica are probably starving for like, can you just like let me into your life here for a minute? Because I don't really feel like this connection's working,
sure.
right?
And not even expecting master communicators, I think, out of us too, but just
Right.
like something like
Something.
yeah.
Right. And I think what a lot of us do is we will retract, right? We'll retract and we'll automatically label them as they don't want to hear it. I don't want to say it. Um, I'll just go figure this out on my own, which also makes me more resentful because really what I want is a connection with her, but she doesn't want to hear it. When all the while, I think if done, and here's the caveat, if done correctly, because if you come across as like, I'm just gonna say it for what it is, a needy, whiny bitch, I mean, that's very crude, right? But at the same time, there is a fine line that our wives find very attractive and also repulsive. If you are like the victim, negative Nelly, everything is cry me a river and it's all everybody's fault and you don't do anything about it versus exactly how you did it, which was very aware, very clear, very confident in your masculine. That's a very different approach that's very attractive. And it doesn't surprise me in the least that Jade completely postured up, probably sat closer to you, completely got into her feminine and just connected with you, right?
Yeah.
Incredible, incredible story. I'm really glad you shared that, man.
Thank you. Yeah.
I want to get to how you help people. So you've mentioned, which by the way, I haven't heard this approach yet, so I don't even know if there's anybody else out there doing this. Like it's sort of like you can go through on your computer or on an app and be somewhat anonymous. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think what I noticed through my own story and talking to a bunch of other guys is like this feels like something that I'm scared to talk about. I don't necessarily want to plaster my first and last name and my social security number on the internet with like addicted to porn. Like that's not, something that most guys feel comfortable with, but I think there's this realization there was for me, and I think for so many people of like clearly I can't do this alone because this is, try number 792 of me just white knuckling it harder, trying to figure out a way to break free from this and feeling like trying to do it in isolation isn't working. And so yeah, coming into Relay, the realization again was like, 10 years ago when I joined my first group, I had two choices. It was a in-person 12-step group or it was some online video camera. Like for me, it was a therapist-led group, which costs a lot of money, and it was show your face on a Zoom with a whole hour-long commitment type of thing. And so, yeah, the idea of Relay was like, could you download an app and could we intelligently match you with 7 or 8 other men who are in the same boat, similar stage of life? And, maybe it's my first name only. So John, whatever. I don't have to put a real profile picture, but I get put in this private group chat with some structure. And there's a lot of other pieces, like there's, some curriculum, some other tools to help you learn how to actually change, but you're in a group. It's all centered around connection because what we believe in the truth is that um, addiction is perpetuated by isolation, and true recovery and true freedom is aided by connection and community. And so that's why we were like, how do we make it easier just for guys to get started? Those who are sitting there saying, I've dealt with this since I was 9 too, or, it's been 20, 30 years. Maybe my wife knows about it. Maybe she doesn't, but like, man, I know that clearly something has to shift, but I don't know if looking at these other options, if I'm quite ready to take such a big leap, how can I still get a different system that is robust, but not as scary, I guess.
I love that you did that because every other person that hosts something like this that I've interviewed, it's, people know who you are.
Yeah.
And I think that do you think that there's probably a correlation between how many people, the thousands you have helped over the years, it correlates with maybe I can be someone, I can be deep and personal, right? And I can connect,
Yeah.
but no one really has to know my entire life story and who I am, right?
Totally, totally. It was baby steps that got us here, right? It wasn't overnight that I decided, let me go, spend my entire evening, watching pornography for the first time ever. Like no one's story of getting hooked on a pornography has been that. It is always maybe some sort of a first exposure and then a gradual crescendo over years. So what makes us think that like we can get out of it in just one day or, with one magical program. Like I'm so grateful for everyone out there, clinicians and other professionals who have poured years of expertise to try to help men have an easier path to freedom and to heal their relationships in this. But yeah, man, it's like it's got to be a baby step. And the baby step for most guys that have dealt with this for years is like, okay, I accept that I need some sort of outside support. And usually it's like my wife can't be my main accountability partner because that's going to tear us apart and that's just not good. And most therapists I talk with agree that like your spouse, your partner, even like a friend or a family member who's not dealing with this, like it can be helpful to have those people in your corner. But having other people who are in the same boat, I think also automatically removes some amount of shame where it's like accountability can be more holistic. It can be more healthy if we are all marching in the same direction rather than, and that's what I love, by the way, about the Dad Edge community. It's like we are moving towards being better men, better husbands, better fathers together rather than like, I'm only being accountable to my wife, who actually is the beneficiary of all of that work. Me and my own self too, and the beneficiary of this work. So obviously, again, going back to the name of Relay, it is a personal thing, but how do we do it in community, in a safe, supportive
Yeah.
environment? Yeah.
That is awesome, man. I love it. And is it all app based? Or
Yeah.
okay, so like the people can like literally the same device that they're looking up porn, they can instead go to this.
Dude, exactly. And
Yeah.
how many times, you want to like throw your phone out the window or like, it's the computer I want to bash with a baseball bat. And like, we have guys that do have dumb phones because they decided, I need a break from a smartphone. I know that I, may need one down the road, but so you can't access it on, from a web browser on your computer if you don't have a smartphone. But most guys, it's like, yeah, the ease of access for acting out. It's like I need something just as easy to help me stay moving towards health and purpose and connection. And so,
Right.
yeah, most of the things that I tried, I had like a group that I met once a week with. So it was on Wednesday nights over Zoom for 60 minutes. And that was great, dude. I'd come out of those calls like it was kind of the virtual, like putting your hand in the middle, doing the chant, like, heck yeah, let's go like crush this together, being good men type of vibe. And it was great energy. But then like Thursday morning, I wake up and I'm just on my own, right? So it's like the energy fades like that. And so having like the vision for Relay was like, man, can we make a platform that makes it easy to stay connected and accountable 7 days a week? So I'm on my lunch break for 10 minutes and I can like check in with my group and just tell them, hey, yesterday for me, hey, in the morning, I had something hard happen at work. I can name that with my group immediately. I don't have to wait till next Wednesday. And we do have like live Zoom stuff that we do too for guys that want to step into more connection. But I think that connection should be a process that we can step into more vulnerability as we build the muscle. Because for many of us, it's underdeveloped. Um,
That is awesome, man. I love the fact that you do that. So tell me more about the app. So like someone gets into
Yeah.
the app, how do they then access like a team or a group?
Mhm. Yeah, so right when you sign up, like we have them fill out a survey. We match them into a group from the start. So that's like the center of the experience is like it's not like some Facebook community with thousands of people. It's like your group of 7 or 8 people, and that's it. And so it is designed to be more tight knit, more closed, and secure and private. We'll have them craft, we call it a recovery zone plan. A lot of programs will use kind of this 3 circle method where my inner circle is defining, what is a relapse for me? Is it pornography? Is it masturbation? Is it chat rooms? Is it, whatever degree of infidelity or acting out that's not healthy for my values in my life? And we help them craft, okay, what are the behaviors, the things that maybe are uh, the middle circle things that aren't inherently bad, but like scrolling Instagram for an hour, is clearly putting me in a more vulnerable position, or staying up past midnight for me was never a winning situation. So they actually define those things too. Okay, what are the boundaries that I'm going to set to try to stay away from the cliff, so to speak? And then we get really focused with them on self-care. And I know you've talked about this a lot in Dad Edge of it's physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, like all the areas of your life. We're not just trying to be like, we're trying to get guys out of this mindset of quitting this unwanted behavior. And instead, how do we direct more energy towards building a life that is
Right.
healthy and built on a solid foundation to
Right.
where when the hard things come, when that hard day at work comes, I can deal with it in better ways without needing to revert back to my old coping behaviors. So they set that up when they get in. They're with a group, so they're able to check in for all those things that they've defined as their plan each day, and it kind of makes the accountability seamless. Where like if I do my check in, you can come in and see Larry, not just like did Chandler have a relapse with pornography. You can see, oh, Chandler's working on connecting with his wife for 5 minutes a day, journaling for 15 minutes, exercising for half an hour, whatever I've set up. And you can see, oh, Chandler's had a few days in a row where he's been missing his exercise goal. Maybe I can reach out because I know that when I tend to let my physical health slip, that I'm more vulnerable to being tempted to act out. So we're trying to connect the dots there so that it's not just, hey guys, I relapsed again, because that's like what a lot of these groups tend to be out there, is like just strict accountability of like, if I relapse, I have a group to tell, and that's a good starting point. But we're trying to move towards like, you can see my stuff, I can see your stuff on, hey man, how you said you were going to talk to your wife and tell her what's been going on with, whatever emotions you were telling me in group. How's that going? So I can follow up on that. It's not just
Cool.
talking about our struggles, if that makes sense.
It's a much more fruitful conversation in my mind. One of the things that we like to do, so we have a couple groups. We have the Dad Edge Business Boardroom, I would say, and that's more like our executive business owner dads. And we have 4 coaches in that group, and that's one thing we always focus on is anytime a guy is like, I don't want to do this anymore, I want to stay away from this or not do this anymore. It's like, stop. That's like, don't think of an elephant. Don't think of a pink elephant in your front yard right now, right? Whatever we resist persists, and usually those conversations are heavy, and they're just like, you kind of get out of those conversations. You're like, well, that was cool, but I don't really feel great. Versus like, let me go design and create what I want and go chase that versus run away from this thing I don't want, which by the way makes us psychologically want it even more. So I love the fact that you guys have that wired into the app. That's a really, really cool thing. I just want to pause here for a second and just really compliment you on a few things. Number one, I've loved this conversation. I've loved this interview. You're a great man. Great man for also developing something like this. But I love the fact that you've made your app just as easy for someone to dive into if they were to get into a habit that they don't want to do. It's like, because the thing is, if you want to get rid of a bad habit, replace it with something good, right? So like, one of the things I did was I subscribed to an app that hey, and the way they marketed it was perfect. They're like, hey, do you want to stop scrolling Instagram as much? I'm like, yeah, I do. Well, check out this app. In 10 minutes you can read a chapter of this book. And they summarize these great, like, thousands of books. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's cool. I'll do that. And I've been doing that. It's great. So the fact that you replace one habit with another, make the ease of use so great is awesome. The other thing is these small tight knit groups. We do this in our groups as well. It's like, hey, it's 7 to 12 guys in each group, and that makes it very intimate for them. It makes it solid. It creates that connection, that stickiness, and then focusing on what these guys want versus what are they trying to avoid. Those conversations are so much more fruitful. So, dude, you're brilliant, brilliant, brilliant.
Well,
What you've
it's
created.
not my brilliance, I should say. It's really been, just having, I mean, I believe God for me has created a lot of doors that have opened. And I think just none of us probably really planned exactly where we'd be at our current points in our life. And
Yeah.
yeah, like I don't view the people that have come into our community and found help as like because of my, genius or anything. But I think genuinely, like, I do have a heart that comes from my own experience and from just knowing how many guys out there want to be better but feel trapped. And like that's what I want to, get through to anyone listening to this. It's just like there are so many good, genuine guys out there who feel the same way and they are taking that step into community. And that's where we can grow and we don't have to do it alone. I think is the biggest message. Um,
Yeah, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
love that.
That is the way to go. Like I can't even think of any other way that I mean I'm 50 years old. I can't even think of a way that I would want to go alone anymore because it sucks. Like
Yeah.
it really does suck. Like I mean there's the only thing I like to do alone is actually work out. And that's because that is my only alone time.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like I just kind of get in I get in I just love that alone time. Anything else though, I want to do with community and people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's hard to like you got to taste it to know. I think of so many guys step in and they think so this is going to be a dreary, down kind of a depressing experience. We're all here because we suck as husbands and like we have had this hidden part of our life and I'm at such a terrible point where that's why I'm here. And so that like what you picture in your mind is so depressing and dark and like I think the opposite is so true. It's like guys who haven't accepted the narrative that I'm like sure I may have struggled with this for a long time, but it doesn't define me. And I want to heal. I want to be better. I want to be more whole. I want to show up differently. And the even just in like our meetings, I'm sure you guys see this too in your groups, like even if it's heavy topics, it's like the energy, the spirit, the camaraderie, it almost feel more fun. Fun feels like a word no one used to describe a group talking about some of these things, but I think it's fun. It's genuinely these guys start to feel like they want to show up and they want to be a part of the group. And they're like, I don't know if I want to leave this because it becomes so much more than just about stopping some bad behavior. And instead it becomes about, I didn't realize how much I was missing. I didn't realize how much I hadn't developed my capacity to experience rich connection and to do that with other men is something we haven't gotten most of us in our life, and that's sad.
I agree, man. I really agree. Let's actually close with this because I want to say something that really emerged with this in me with what you just said, and I want to get your stance on this. But here's what I'm seeing. I've been in the dad space since 2012. Podcast 2015. We've run our groups now in the Alliance for almost 10 years.
Amazing.
And here's what I've seen with men in community. I think there's no longer a desire problem, meaning like men really want to step into something greater, a greater leader, greater husband, greater man, right? But they also don't want to be identified as broken, right? And here's what I'll tell you, you're not broken. And what I will tell you though is you're probably unfinished. Meaning, so think of it this way. I don't think that there's a desire problem. I think a lot of men want that. And I don't think that there's a shortage of information. Like there's a plethora of information. Like when guys join our community, they're always like, I listen to 9 hours of podcasts a month or a week. I'm sitting here like, and then they'll tell me like, but my life isn't getting any better. So it's like, there's no desire problem. There's definitely not a shortage of information problem. If you really look at what the gap is, it's the implementation problem. Like, all this information, this stuff that I'm learning, how do I then go do it? It's kind of like I I kind of refer to it as medical school. During medical school, you're all in the classroom, right? And then you go through residency and fellowship if you're going to be a surgeon. Residency and fellowship is the implementation of all that knowledge. It's the hands-on, and you're in the OR, you're in the gown and the hat and the scrubs and everything. You got the gloves on, you're cutting people open. That's the implementation. And you've got an attending, I used to be a medical device sales, so I know all this stuff. So you've got an attending physician surgeon who's been there for decades, has done the surgery, and he's right there with you, helping you with, here's all your knowledge, here's the implementation, here's how you do it. And this is the outcome. But I think that's the biggest gap is the implementation. What do you think?
Oh, I totally agree. And I think it's the first video in our curriculum that we made with a wonderful therapist who's become a good friend of mine who has helped probably many more men than I have with this issue. He says that information doesn't equal transformation, but information plus application equals transformation. Yes. And that application that, implementing it into real life is hard. And so it's, I'm sitting here, I'm listening to all this information. I know you probably know what you need to do, right? It's how do you surround yourself with the right people and the right system to help make it a little easier. And hopefully, as the years go by, I'm more optimistic actually. As a society, it seems like most things are getting worse. And if you look at the news too long, you probably get the maybe not so positive spirits about where we're headed. But I'm actually optimistic that there's so many movements and momentum and so many people like trying to help make this easier to implement, to actually apply these things that can lead to transformation. So I'm hopeful, Larry, about where things are going.
Me too, brother. Well, I want to make sure before I tell everybody where to find this show, where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, you can find us at our website. Our website is www.joinrelay.app. I always like to say you can email me personally too, and we can throw this in the notes, but my email is just chandler@joinrelay.app. Please shoot me a note if you listen to this episode, if something resonated with you. Email is a great way to get in touch.
Well, we got you covered, man. We'll have those 2 links in the show notes for you guys, along with all of our other links as well. If you go to thedadedge.com/543 for this show. Again, thedadedge.com/543. Chandler, from my heart to yours, thank you for the work you're doing, and thank you for making it so easy for men to access, brother.
Hey, likewise, Larry. Thanks, man.
Thank you, brother.